few months after graduating from college, I decided to get an apartment. I had a nice job as an assistant designer for a menswear company on Park Avenue in New York City. A friend of mine was also looking for an apartment. So together we decided that we would be roommates and find a really nice apartment. We actually found one in Brooklyn, New York, an area called Park Slopes. It was a brownstone across from a park, and it had 8 rooms. So there was enough room for the two of us. We were there for a couple of months. He was an interior designer for a very well-known women's clothing store, I should say. And if I told you the name, you recognize it instantly. He designed the windows and the interior of the store, putting together the mannequins and so forth, giving the store the look that gains its reputation. Anyway, there was a point in time where I received a letter in the mail. First, it didn't make any sense because it was from the Water and Power Department, and that was one thing that was actually included in the rent. So I didn't understand why we were getting this, but further reading it, I discovered that the landlord had not paid the bill, and they were just notifying us as tenants that, of this situation, just in case something went cockeyed. I think it was around $2,000 or $3,000 behind in his payment. It was something between the landlord and the water and power company. Without saying anything, I gave the same letter to my roommate, and he looked at it and he was like, he just went into a rage because $2,000 or whatever the price was ridiculous. How could we possibly owe that much? So I asked him to read the letter again, and he had the same response. This is crazy. This is outrageous. And he was just really ready to call his lawyers and, what can we do? This was just totally out of control. So I asked him, are you sure you read the entire letter? Did you read it? Read it again. And he read it. At least he went through the motions of reading it, and he came up with the same conclusion. This was just stupid. I read it. This is stupid. This makes absolutely no sense. How could this possibly be? And that was when I realized, and I asked him, you don't know how to read, do you? And it took a little coaxing, but he finally admitted that he did not know how to read, which totally threw me for a loop. I mean, it was baffling to me how someone could be in the position that he was in and get away with not even knowing the basics of how to read. And so he went on to explain to me that when he first applied for the position, they asked him to fill out the application, because that was really the thing. How could you get a job and you don't know how to fill out an application? So he told him, he had another appointment that he really had to get to. Could he take the application with him and fill it out and bring it back? And they agreed to it. Well, there was one other person that knew his situation. And so he took the application and he went to them to have them fill out the application, and then he brought it back. So he was able to get the job. And he did the job extremely well. I mean, it was news coverage about it constantly. But they were constantly wanting to move him to a different position, a higher position, a better paying position. What the challenge was, he didn't want to get into any of the paperwork situation, but just using his hands and his talents, he could do that successfully and get away with it. He would always have a book or a magazine or a newspaper, and he would always be looking at it. And so you would just assume that he was reading. So no questions would ever come up about, can you read or not? And the way he would get the information, he would start talking to somebody about the book and say, you really like the book. What did you think? And because he was asking them, they would always give him all the information he could take on for the next conversation. He had bits and pieces, and he would just get all the information. I thought he was genius. I thought it was absolutely genius how he was able to perform like that. But I really felt, at the same time, I wanted to help him learn how to read. We had a few attempts at it, and it was just that at this stage in life, he had no real interest in. So he had learned to navigate through life on his own terms. Now, he was black, okay, and this was in the 70s. Yeah, this was still in the 70s. And so, with that coming against him, that somebody could still be fully functioning in a society that you need to know how to read and write, how he could possibly pull this off. But if he didn't take that as a deterrent from making it, what is your excuse? I mean, all this BS that comes out about, you were born in the wrong neighborhood on the wrong side of the tracks, or, your skin shade is wrong, or this or that, whatever. No excuse. Absolutely no excuse. If you want to find a way, you will find a way. At least look for it. Giving up, when you say you can't, you can't. When you say you don't, you won't. You have to fight for it. This was a little contrived from what he did. But I haven't been in touch with him for years, so I don't know what the outcome has been or how far he went with it. But that period of time, he created a scenario and he stuck with it, and he was successful in what he was doing. You have no excuse. Don't give me what anybody else has done, what your downfalls are. No excuse.